What happened to Psy? In 2012, he broke the internet with Gangnam Style, turning the whole world into his dance floor and becoming the first true YouTube superstar. But a decade later, the once smiling king of K-pop faces drug accusations, police investigations, and a career in ruins. The man who made billions laugh is now living a reality no one ever imagined. Before Psy became a global punchline and a cultural earthquake, he was simply Park Jae-sung, born on December 31st, 1997, in the wealthy Gangnam district of Seoul, South Korea. Ironically, the very neighborhood that would one day inspire his satirical anthem was also the place where he grew up, a district known for wealth, status, and flashy lifestyles. Unlike the polished K-pop idols that would later define the industry, Psy's journey was never meant to fit the mold. His father was the executive chairman of a semiconductor company, and his mother ran a restaurant. From the start, Psy's path was privileged but unconventional. Instead of being groomed into Korea's rigid entertainment system, he was the class clown, the rebel, the one who would rather make people laugh than bow to rules. Teachers described him as disruptive. His classmates remembered him as hilarious. And he himself admitted he was far more interested in entertaining than studying. In the late 1990s, Psy traveled to the United States to study business at Boston University. But business was never his calling. Instead, he gravitated toward Berklee College of Music, sneaking in classes on music theory and production. Berklee, a breeding ground for raw talent, gave Psy a foundation, but he never completed a degree. What he did carry home was a sharpened sense of rhythm, a love for showmanship, and a knack for blending Western and Korean sensibilities into something absurd, bold, and instantly catchy. When Psy debuted in 2001 with his album Psy from the Psycho World, the industry didn't quite know what to make of him. He was overweight by idol standards, irreverent in his lyrics, and brazen in his performance style. South Korea's authorities even fined him for his inappropriate content. Yet, that shock factor became his trademark. Unlike the clean-cut idols groomed by massive entertainment companies, Psy was raw, loud, and utterly unpolished, and that was exactly what set him apart. His early years in the Korean music scene were turbulent. He gained notoriety for wild stage antics and a satirical edge, but mainstream success always seemed just out of reach. He released several albums through the 2000s, each punctuated by controversy, including a temporary military service scandal that delayed his career. To most of South Korea, Psy was the oddball funny, yes, but hardly someone destined for international stardom. Yet, those years in obscurity were the forge that shaped his identity. Psy honed a performance style that was part comedian, part musician, and entirely his own. He wasn't an idol, he wasn't a traditional balladeer, he was Psy. And when the world was finally ready for something different, he was there with the perfect storm of timing, humor, and audacity. By the summer of 2012, Psy was no longer just a quirky figure in South Korea's music scene. He was about to become the most recognizable face on the planet. On July 15th, he released a track called Gangnam Style. At first, it was meant as a playful satire of Seoul's wealthy district where he grew up, poking fun at the flashy lifestyle of Gangnam. But no one could have predicted what would happen next. The video opened with Psy's comedic swagger, outrageous visuals, and that absurd yet unforgettable horse dance. Within weeks, the clip spread across Asia, then leapt to the West. By September, American celebrities like Britney Spears and Ellen DeGeneres were inviting Psy to their shows, attempting the dance alongside him. The internet had found its new obsession. Gangnam Style became the first video in history to hit 1 billion views on YouTube, a milestone so unimaginable at the time that the platform had to reconfigure its counter system. The horse dance was performed at stadiums, parades, weddings, political rallies, and even by world leaders. Psy stood alongside UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon at the United Nations, who jokingly called him a force stronger than diplomacy. Few artists in history had ever achieved such instantaneous, borderless fame. For Psy, the world had turned into one giant stage. He was performing at Madison Square Garden, headlining New Year's Eve in Times Square, and being hailed as the face of the K-pop wave that was now sweeping the globe. South Korea, long eager for cultural recognition, had finally found its ambassador. Yet the irony was striking. It wasn't a polished idol, but a stocky, comedic performer with sunglasses and a ridiculous dance who cracked open the door for K-pop worldwide. At the peak, Psy was everywhere. Every news outlet, every late-night talk show, every award stage seemed to feature him. Gangnam Style wasn't just a song, it was a cultural phenomenon. A moment in time when the world seemed united in laughter and dance. Psy had achieved a kind of immortality, his name etched in internet history, his image instantly recognizable from Seoul to Sao Paulo. For a brief, dazzling moment, he was untouchable. But as with any meteoric rise, the higher the climb, the steeper the fall waiting below. And Psy, though basking in the spotlight, was already showing signs of being overwhelmed by the very fame he had once dreamed of. For every rise, there was a fall, and for Psy, it came quickly. After Gangnam Style conquered the world in 2012, the pressure to follow up was suffocating. Fans didn't just expect another hit, they expected another global earthquake. In April 2013, Psy released Gentleman. The video exploded out of the gate, racking up millions of views in its first day. But despite the numbers, it never captured the same lightning in a bottle. The song was criticized for being repetitive, the choreography less iconic, and the world's fascination had already begun to fade. What had made Psy an international sensation was precisely that he was unexpected, an unlikely star with a silly dance and a satirical edge. But once the joke was told, could it ever be told again? The world had laughed, danced, and moved on. And Psy, stuck in the glare of a spotlight that once felt like a blessing, found himself increasingly defined as a one-hit wonder. Back in South Korea, things weren't easier. While the world celebrated Psy as a novelty, the Korean entertainment industry remained skeptical. He didn't look like a traditional idol. His music was brash, and controversies continued to haunt him. Old issues resurfaced, including criticism over his military service record, and every attempt to reinvent himself was dissected under a microscope. The relentless pace of fame also took its toll. Psy admitted in interviews that the pressure left him battling depression, insomnia, and unhealthy coping habits. He drank heavily, confessing that alcohol became a constant in his life. The goofy smile that had once charmed billions now masked a man overwhelmed by his own success. By the mid-2010s, Psy's international presence had sharply declined. His later releases, while successful in South Korea, failed to break globally. The West that once embraced him now largely remembered him for one viral moment. He had gone from being the unstoppable face of K-pop's future to a cultural punchline, a reminder of how brutally fast the internet builds idols and tears them down. The fall wasn't a single scandal, but a combination of fading novelty, crushing expectations, and personal struggles. Psy was no longer the world's viral king. He was a man fighting to stay relevant, while silently collapsing under the weight of the very fame that had once lifted him up. When the dust of Gangnam Style finally settled, Psy was left in a strange position. Still a superstar at home, but fading fast abroad. In South Korea, he continued to release music under YG Entertainment, one of the country's biggest labels. Yet internationally, the world that once couldn't get enough of him seemed to lose interest overnight. Psy was no longer the ambassador of K-pop, but a reminder of how fleeting viral fame can be. By 2015, other K-pop groups polished, idol-like, and meticulously trained were taking center stage. BTS was rising, Blackpink was preparing to debut, and the global wave Psy had cracked open was now carried by a new generation of artists who fit the industry's glossy image. Psy, with his satirical humor and everyman looks, felt increasingly like a relic of a different era. The media narrative shifted as well. Articles began to describe him as a novelty act, a cultural oddity whose viral moment had passed. For Psy, the sting was real. He had done what no Korean artist before him had ever achieved, becoming the most watched performer on Earth. Yet, he was now written off as a one-time fluke. The man who opened the doors was being pushed aside as others walked through. In 2017, Psy quietly left YG Entertainment, the powerhouse label that had helped amplify his fame. For many, this marked the symbolic end of his mainstream career. He wasn't gone, but he wasn't front-page news anymore either. His name rarely appeared on Western charts. His music videos no longer dominated global feeds, and his presence in interviews and talk shows dwindled. To his fans, the disappearance was bittersweet. Some felt abandoned, others nostalgic, remembering the joy Psy had brought to a moment in time when the world seemed united in dance. For the press, he became a case study in viral culture, a man who reached unimaginable heights only to fade into the margins. Psy hadn't vanished completely, but the world had moved on without him. And yet, the story didn't end there, because while Psy had stepped out of the global spotlight, his life was heading in a direction few expected, toward battles more personal, controversies more dangerous, and a present-day reality that feels almost unrecognizable compared to the man who once made the planet dance. Today, Psy's life looks nothing like the glittering image burned into the world's memory back in 2012. The sunglasses, the horse dance, the goofy grin, they belong to another era. Now his name surfaces in headlines not for breaking records, but for breaking trust. In recent years, Psy has been investigated by South Korean authorities over allegations tied to illegal drug prescriptions. Reports claim that he obtained sleeping pills and tranquilizers through questionable methods, including prescriptions written without face-to-face consultations. Even more damaging were revelations that an associate allegedly picked up the medication in his name, a direct violation of Korean health laws. Suddenly, the man once celebrated as the king of harmless fun was now being painted in the press as a suspect in a drug scandal. Police officially booked Psy in 2025 for questioning, a term that doesn't necessarily mean imprisonment, but one that carries a heavy stigma in South Korea. Overnight, the internet filled with speculation. Was Psy facing jail time? Could the man who once danced at the United Nations now stand trial in a courtroom? For Psy's fans, the shock was brutal. To see their idol, who had once symbolized joy, laughter, and cultural pride, linked to criminal allegations, felt almost unthinkable. The contrast was staggering, from a billion-view celebration to whispers of prison bars. The goofy superstar of yesterday was now a middle-aged man haunted by scandal. On top of the legal troubles, Psy's health battles continued. He has long admitted to struggling with insomnia and depression, conditions worsened by the immense pressure of his past fame. His coping mechanisms, particularly heavy drinking, have further fueled concerns about his well-being. The public image of Psy as a carefree jokester has shattered, replaced with that of a man visibly burdened by age, stress, and controversy. Professionally, Psy has attempted reinvention. In 2019, he launched his own entertainment agency, P Nation, signing younger artists like Hyun A and Dawn. For a moment, it looked like Psy had found a second act as a behind-the-scenes mogul. But even here, scandals followed, artists left the label, deals fell through, and P Nation failed to rival the powerhouses that dominate K-pop. Instead of being remembered as a visionary, Psy became the subject of online debates about whether he had squandered his legacy. The most painful contrast lies in how the world sees him now. Once hailed as the face of K-pop's global breakthrough, he is increasingly mentioned as a cautionary tale of viral fame. The man who flew higher than anyone thought possible, only to crash into obscurity, scandal, and the looming shadow of the law. And yet, Psy is still here, no longer the symbol of global joy, but a man standing at a crossroads, his reputation fractured, his future uncertain, his past impossible to escape. The biggest question haunting fans and critics alike isn't about what Psy achieved back then, but what will happen to him now. Will he redeem himself, or will the next headline finally confirm the unthinkable? The story of Psy is more than a viral tale. It's a reminder of the brutal speed with which fame can lift someone up and just as quickly tear them down. In 2018, he was the unlikely hero who broke every barrier, uniting the world through laughter and dance. A decade later, he stands as a man shadowed by scandal, health struggles, and questions about his future. Psy's journey forces us to reflect on the cost of fame. Behind every viral smile is a human being, vulnerable, flawed, and fragile. The world cheered when he gave us joy, but the world also turned away when his glow faded. He is not just a headline, not just a one-hit wonder, but a man who reached the pinnacle of cultural immortality only to discover how lonely and unforgiving it can be at the top. There is tragedy in that arc, but also a lesson. Viral moments come and go, but the human toll they leave behind often lasts forever. Psy's downfall may serve as a warning for the next generation of artists rushing toward the spotlight. The internet can crown you in an instant, but it can also strip you bare just as fast. And so we're left with a haunting question. What will happen to Psy next? Will he find redemption? Or will his legacy be sealed as the man who gave the world its biggest laugh before becoming one of its most sobering, cautionary tales? To the viewers, the story is no longer just about Psy, it's about us. Our hunger for spectacle, our short attention spans, and the way we treat artists like disposable entertainment. Psy's fall isn't just his tragedy, it's a mirror reflecting back at the culture we've built. So what do you think? Was Psy simply a man consumed by his own success? Or was he a victim of the machine of fame? Share your thoughts and tell us which story you'd like to see next, because the spotlight may fade, but the questions it leaves behind will never stop echoing.